Today you're going to learn to walk in the shoes of a wealthy businessman, better known in the northern states of Mexico and the borderlands of the US as a hacendado. The time is a turn of the century from the 1800s to the 1900s, with the president of Mexico, Porfirio Diaz, serving his 21st year as president. You and your fellow hacendados are getting a bit tired of the status quo, and each have had your own ideas of how to defeat your fellow hacendados and rise to the top to topple President Porfirio Diaz. This time period is ironically referred to as the Porfirian Peace, better known as the title of the game we're going to learn from Phil Eklund, Matt Eklund, and Jim Goot as Pax Porfiriana. Pax Porfiriana is a card game for 1 to 6 players where you buy cards from the market to build a row of cards in front of you in your play area. Your cards make up your economy that helps you earn income, gives you special abilities, and they mark the victory points known in this game as prestige points. You need these to win the game. You also have cards that you play from your hand to wreak havoc on your opponents through assassinations, raids, and riots. You win the game when a player buys one of the 4 topple cards from the market, and you have to have the correct prestige points at that time to take down Diaz in the current regime, and the 2 opponents with the least amount of that prestige point, and you win. If 2 or more players are able to topple Diaz, then the player out of those 2 with the most gold wins the game. If the 4th topple card is purchased and still no one can take down Diaz, then the player with the most gold wins the game. Quickly show you the setup of Pax Porfiriana. Now have your cards, unwrap your cards, take out your chips, and sort out your cubes by color. Go through your cards, and we're going to sort out all the double-sided cards. You have several cards with the black back that says Pax Porfiriana, but sort out the double-sided cards and set those aside. I'll explain what they are and what kind of piles you put them into. We have 1 player aid. That goes off to the side. It's got like our player actions per turn and also the sequence of play. So that goes off to the side, great little reference. Sort out the 6 hacendados. These are the players that you're going to be in the game. These 6 hacendados get sorted or shuffled, and each player grabs one at random. They get placed with the black and white side face up. And we're going to set up for a 4-player game. So we're going to deal 4 of these, and then 2 are going to go back in the box. So I shuffle these up, and then we start with Mr. Carenza, Mr. Terrazas, Orozco, and Bernardo Reyes. The 2 other hacendados go back into the box, which if you're going to play with a 5 or 6 player game, you could use them. And by the way, this game can go up to 6 players. You just need to add 1 more set of cubes, which is a unique color from the rest. Something like orange or purple would work fine. Then sort out, there's 4 regime cards. Sort those into a pile. They have a black and white side and the color side. Color sides face up. And you start with the green side up. That's the Pax side face up. That gets set off to the side for now. And there's 2 more double-sided cards. They're called our public cards. They're white on one side, and then one's blue and one's pink on the other. Those 2 cards get separate. They stay separate from the rest of the cards. Important thing to do right now is go through the rest of the cards, and there's over 200 of them. You're going to have to pull out the 4 topple cards. And 4. Once you have your topple cards sorted, now it's time to shuffle. If this is the first time you've played this game and you just unwrapped your cards, shuffle well. So, did you have fun shuffling? You're not done yet. You're going to take these cards. First thing we got to do is count out enough for the game. Not all of these cards get used for a game. So what you do is you take a base of 50 cards and then you add 10 cards for each player who's playing. Since we have a 4-player game, we're going to use only 90 cards and the rest go back in our box. Here's our 90 cards. Those set over here. And the rest of these just go back in the box with our 2 Hacendado cards. Each player then selects a color. We're going to set this box with the cards and the cubes we're not using. We'll just set it aside. You're not done shuffling yet. We have one more thing to do with our deck. You're going to take your deck of cards and sort them into 6 groups. They don't have to be exact, but you want them to be pretty close. Just make 6 chunks of cards that are somewhat even. And this is where we're going to load our deck with the topple cards. And we kind of want to, this is to get those topple cards so they come out at a pretty consistent interval at the right time during the game. So we take our 4 topple cards and we put one face down on 4 of these stacks. 2 of the stacks don't get them. So we're going to set those 2 aside, and these we just kind of shuffle just to randomize where that topple card goes. And these 4 get put together. Then the 2 stacks that didn't get a topple card go on top. That's going to make up our main deck. Then we take 12 of these cards, flip them face up, and this is going to make up what's called our market. Two more things. Each player takes 2 of their cubes and puts them on their Hacendado. Up in the upper right corner, you got those little cubes up there, just stick them on top of there. And then randomly select your starting player. And in our game, we're going to start with Don Luis Terrazas. We have gold 1s, 5s, and 10s. First player gets 4 gold. Second player clockwise is going to get 5 gold. The third player gets 6 gold. And the fourth player in this game is going to get 7 gold. Now we're ready to wreak havoc on each other and take down President Diaz. I'm just going to quickly run through what the sequence is of a player's turn. When a player starts their turn, they get 3 actions. We're going to cover all the actions they can take more in depth in just a few minutes. But basically 3 actions would be things like buying cards, playing cards from their hand, deploying troops, etc. The second thing they do is they check this column on the far end of the market. If there's any headline cards, which there's this one here, that gets discarded into what we call the bull-bear discard. We make a new discard pile for the bull-bear cards. Third thing they do is they replenish the market. And when they replenish the market, cards basically slide down and a new card comes out. The fourth thing on their turn is they get to collect income, and they basically collect gold for each cube that they have in play. So that's just a quick example of how a player's turn works. Now, let's look at the market in detail. So the way the market works is when players buy cards, they buy a card from the market, and the cards, for the most part, go into their hand. The only exception to that are the headline cards and the headline cards that say topple. Those would get played instantly. So in this case, let's say Mr. Terrazas spends gold and he buys a card from the market. Now, the cards in the market are worth different amounts depending on which row they're in. Down on this far right, on my right, the cards are worth 0. They would be free. They would just cost an action to take. This row is worth 1, row's worth 2, 4, 8, and 16. So the player would spend gold and buy the card. In this case, Don Luis Terrazas, he would like to buy this black card, which is Henry O'Flipper. So basically this card's free. He uses one action, adds this card to his hand. Now in the market, that's the cost of the market, but then toward the end of the player's turn, I'm going to go into depth a little bit more on this bull-bear discard. If there's a headline card in the 0 row, those cards get discarded to the bull-bear discard. In the upper right or left corner and lower right corner on these headline cards, there's either a red bear or a black bull. That's going to determine, when they get discarded, it determines our economy. If 2 bears get discarded in a row, we fall into depression. And you mark that with a blue chip, goes on your regime card right up at the top to show that we're in depression. If 2 black bulls get discarded in a row, then that would end the depression. We're going to look at that probably more as we go along, but that's just a little bit how that would work. And then the third thing a player does on their turn is they replenish the market. And the way that works is all the cards in the market shift down toward the less expensive side. So since we use both the cards in the 0 row, all the cards slide down and become less expensive, and the new cards that come out in play or in the market are the most expensive. These would come out and cost a player 16 gold to purchase. So before you go to the market and start buying cards willy-nilly, it's probably best to understand what you're buying. I'm going to show you the cards here a little bit more in detail. We're going to start with the enterprise cards, and the enterprise cards are cards that are more your bread and butter of your economy. First card we're going to look at is what's called the gun store. This is an enterprise that I would buy it from the market, pay the cost depending on what row it was in. I could spend another action and then play it from my hand and spend the gold cost that's in the upper right corner. That's shown in that blue circle with the yellow number. So this would take 1 action and 7 gold to play, and I'd put it out in my play area. The gun store starts and basically only has 1 income cube, and that's shown by the cube in the upper left-hand corner. So I take my cube and put it there. That'll generate 1 gold during my income phase. The other thing is a gun store, and all gun stores have this special ability that when someone plays a nasty orange card on an enterprise, you would collect 2 gold if any player played that card. So if my opponent played an orange card, I would collect 2 gold. And the thought there that is, if you're going to instill unrest and kind of make people unsettled there, they're going to go out and arm themselves and spend money at the gun store. And if someone wanted to, or I wanted to, you could take an action and spend the gold and upgrade this connection. So now you have a path that'll let you, pack mule get to this place. And we'll see on troop cards, there's different costs depending on which mode of transport the troops use to get to an enterprise. I could play this for another action. I could spend 1 gold and put my cube on this upgraded connection. And an upgraded connection, as we're going to see on other enterprises, doesn't have to be the player who plays the card in front of them. Any player can upgrade the connection and earn income from that on their income phase. The next type of card we're going to talk about is the orange card. The orange card is a nasty card. They're cards that players play against other opponents' enterprises, and sometimes they'll play them on their own enterprises in what's called a straw man play. My opponent has this bank, and I'm going to play an orange card on the enterprise. I'm going to hurt my opponent. So I play banditos, I use an action, I spend 1 gold, and I'm going to steal 3 gold from the player. So I take 3 gold, and then I'm going to place 4 Unrest tokens on this enterprise. It matches, it's in the same district as my banditos. My banditos are in Sonora, this district is in Sonora. So I place those 4 Unrest tokens on here. Talk about those in just a minute. The other thing this does is it changes the regime from Pax Porfiriana to anarchy. The economy for a bank is 3 under Pax. It goes down to 1 for anarchy. So I make that adjustment. And then what happens after this is this card will now go to the player, and they place it as a victim awarded prestige point for the outrage. The opponent gets this card and they slide it under their Hacendado card. And it says basically they have 1 outrage victory point right now. So when Unrest is on an enterprise, it basically shuts down that enterprise card. They won't earn any income for any cubes on there. If it was an upgraded connection, it would revert back to the basic connection, and the special ability that's on that card no longer applies. Black cards are the cards that do nasty things to other players. Rather than just targeting enterprises like orange cards, black cards target partners, and they can steal enterprises, they can steal gold from players. The way black cards work is you play the card, and this card costs 2 actions to play unless specified by the current regime. This card is La Descenda Tragica, something like that. And what I would do is pay 2 actions unless we're in the martial law regime. Then it would cost me 1. But I'd play this, and this one would assassinate a partner. The X for the cost is the cost to play the partner. So if my partner card was out there, and it was this card here, which is Mystic Teresa Herrera, this would cost 6 gold to play this assassination. 6 gold and 2 actions unless it was in the martial law regime. This steals 0 gold. Now what you have to do is you have to watch when you play these black cards, because a lot of them have the upside down prestige point, which is called a victim awarded point. Just like on the orange cards, these are the points that go to the other player after you damage their cards or steal something from them. They get this little prestige point. So you're hurting them and possibly helping them at the same time. So keep that in mind as you play. The last type of cards we got to talk about are the troop cards. Before we get into our game, we're going to cover the actions in a little bit more detail. We've already looked at some of them, but let's go through the list. Pick up your player aid that's got player actions on one side. If you flip it over, it's got sequence of play. Looking at the action side of your card, we're going to start with the play hand card. It costs one action to play a card from your hand. The second option there for actions is a buy a market card. It costs one action to buy a market card. For your second market card, it costs 2 actions. And now's a good time to let you know that you have a 5-card limit for your hand. If you already have 5 cards in your hand, the only market card you can buy is the headline card, because that's played instantly. If you had that many market cards or cards in your hand, you'd probably want to get rid of some or sell some or use one. Number 3 on there is buy and play a public card. Those 2 cards that we haven't talked about yet are the public cards. These are cards that aren't part of the market, and when you purchase a public card, they immediately are played in front of you. There's 2 sides to that public card, and you can choose which side you want face up. Usually they have a prestige point, and they also can change the regime. So I see these cards get a lot of times purchased toward the end game, where you want to just get that little boost, change the regime, and get another point to hopefully topple Diaz when the time comes. The 4th possible action you can take on your turn is to sell a card. It's a great way to get a little extra gold when you're low on it and you have cards in your hand or out in your play area that are doing nothing for you. To do this, you sell a card by discarding a card from your hand and collecting gold equal to the current economy. In this case, our current economy is 3, so I would just find a card in my hand, discard it, and take 3 gold. You can also sell cards in your play area, as long as they don't have Unrest. And you can't sell your Hacendado. Why would you want to do that? So if you sell a card in your play area, it works the same way. Collect gold equal to the current economy. Now, if this card, for some reason, would have a troop on it, and you sold it, as long as there's no Unrest on it again, if I sold this card with a troop on it that belonged to someone else, this card would get discarded. I would take my gold equal to the economy, and the troop would either have to retreat or that troop would be discarded. Number 5 is to redeploy a troop card. We talked about playing a troop from your hand. That would take 1 action, but when the troop is already out there, you can take an action and redeploy it to another enterprise or redeploy it to your flipped over Hacendado card. You still have to pay the cost to do that, but it takes an action, and that's an option you have. Number 6 is action to buy land. I mentioned this one when we talked about the enterprise. Especially, it just affects the ranch and the plantation. His ability here is he can buy land in Chihuahua and expends 1 action instead of 2. Right now, he's only got 1 income cube, so it's going to cost 1 gold. Again, to buy land, you have to use normally 2 actions and then spend gold for each cube on the ranch or plantation. In this case, he can use 1 action because of his ability, and then he's going to spend 1 gold for this cube and be able to expand his ranch, adding another cube. Now these, with the Unrest on there, these are not going to generate income until the Unrest is removed. The 7th one is you can upgrade a connection. Take an action and upgrade a connection on someone else's enterprise or your own enterprise connection. So his 3rd action, he's going to upgrade the connection for 1 gold and place a cube here. And I forgot to place my cube on the gun store. That takes care of his 3 actions. He's going to refresh the market. If you look at your player action card, the 8th possible action you could take on a turn would be a police action. A police action would either remove 1 Unrest disc for 3 gold, or if you pay 3 gold, you can get out of jail and get another action back. When you're in jail, you only get 2 actions rather than the 3 actions you normally get. So I would take a police action, spend 3 gold, and remove 1 Unrest disc. Now, that seems like a lot of gold to spend, especially if you have a lot of Unrest discs on your enterprise. Now, if there's a troop occupying that enterprise, maybe an extorting troop, or let's say this one is my own troop, I can use a police action and remove an Unrest disc for 0 gold rather than 3. If I took 3 police actions, I could remove 3 Unrest discs as long as there's a troop on that card. And the 9th action on there is Speculate. We haven't talked about this one either. This is a great one because you can use an action, take 1 of your cubes, and put it on a card in the market. And in this case, I'm just going to pick a card. I'm going to say probably this enterprise here, this mine, somebody's going to buy that eventually. When you speculate, when that card is sold, rather than the gold going back to the bank, that gold goes to you. That cube remains on there even if it's in the zero column. As soon as that card is purchased, then that cube goes back. Speculate also works if you use all of your cubes, you have no cubes left, you can use a speculate action to move one cube from a legal target to another legal target. So you could take a speculate cube possibly off of one of your cards and put it somewhere else where you might need it more.